Greetings, everyone. Um, I realize probably a lot of you don't know me. My name is Myoko. Uh, I'm one of the teachers here at the Village Zendo. Um, I was gonna do the traditional scroll to see all the faces, but I'm afraid if I see all the faces, I'll just freak out. I'm thrilled there's so many people that are participating in the session and uh, becoming part of the Village Zendo. Um, but public speaking, uh, anyway. So welcome to our second day um, of this session. And first, I just have to chime in with my profound gratitude and complete admiration and awe, really, of the people who put this together. Um, the work started months and months ago, and just the level of complexity to bring this off so seamlessly is incredible, you know, for the technology, but also the incredible teamwork. And I have to say, I've just also been very touched by the tenor of what's clear, how people are relating to each other, which was with just a tremendous gentleness and care and respect. And it has provided this incredible container that I have to say is proving to be way more powerful than I thought was possible. It's really different from going off and being in a residential retreat, but it's equally as powerful and in a very challenging way, because as our Shusho mentioned this morning, you know, we're really dropping our routines and our habits as we are right in the middle of all of our routines and habits. And the value of this challenging practice is profound. So anyway, so much, much, much gratitude. So we've been consistently hearing that in this text by Dogen Uji, he's telling us that time is our lives, that we ourselves and everything else in our universe is actually time, that life itself is the time being. And again, as Shuso really pointed out so clearly this morning, it's what's happening now. And, you know, time is such a mysterious, slippery mental construct, but, you know, the passage of time is basic, constant, and fundamental. Its flow cannot be controlled or stopped, as it's none other than the flow of our lives. And, you know, as Roshi mentioned yesterday, in the past, pre-COVID days, the most common refrain regarding time, and I know I was certainly in that camp, was that feeling of there was just never enough of it, that I was somehow always running out of it, that we or I were without it, which of course, being our lives, how could that even be possible? But now for a lot of us, the opposite narrative might dominate, that there's just too much of it. Will this period ever end? And in both of these states, we forget the fundamental reality that we ourselves are time, and how could there ever be too much or too little of us or it. So there is the mind of wisdom, or our Buddha mind speaking, and then there is our delusory mind speaking, full of all kinds of ideas, some wondrous, some demonic, and some simply confabulating, telling us all kinds of things about ourselves, others, and time. And this doesn't have to be the problem or cause of as much suffering as it is. If, as Roshi said, we simply could realize when we're experiencing the truth or when we're lost in the fog of our ideas. Yesterday I was thinking, I noticed that my mood shifted profoundly in the afternoon. I had been completely enjoying settling into the retreat in the morning and the previous evening. But late yesterday morning, I started to get really anxious about giving a talk. And really, fear began to just bear its fangs. And I could see it coming, and I really did not want to be so scared again, because I had thought I finally, made my peace with it, and then here it was. So I then sort of shifted into this pretty familiar and very skillful fear stuffing mode. And, I wasn't really feeling fear anymore, but by the afternoon, later in the afternoon, I started realizing how angry I had gotten. And I could see that because just things were annoying me, and it was most obvious to me in how I was just responding to Kokio, my partner, who I live with. And while I couldn't see what I was doing to myself, I could hear my voice and how I was talking to her. And, it wasn't pretty. So particularly being as we're in this, retreat mode, it became much easier to see it more quickly and to see where that anger and annoyance and frustration and judgment was actually coming from. I really appreciate the tone of our Shuso's practice recommendations, and his angle commitment form particularly, I thought was very strong, and I love the gentleness of it. Because being able to practice gentleness with oneself is really, I've come to see, a very deep, subtle, and difficult practice. But the more that I'm able to practice with it and fail and practice again and fail and practice again, the more I really see it as the path to healing, um, at least for myself. So, I was saying before, pre-pandemic, I was, always feeling like I did not have enough time. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an artist, I'm a potter. So I had 3 different teaching jobs and a studio and the Zendo, and I live in Staten Island, and my studio's in Jersey City, and the Zendo, and some of my teaching jobs are in Manhattan and the others out in Brooklyn. And so I would spend a lot of my time going from here to there physically and mentally, leaving one place, one activity, and accordingly one mind space to arrive at a completely different one each day, and then often many within a single day. Arriving, leaving, and not arriving were quite literally just this ongoing carousel. But since the beginning of COVID, really the physical or literal carousel came to an abrupt halt. That I do have to admit, I've fortunately been able to keep going to my studio. Everywhere else, obviously, along with everyone else, has dropped off. And besides being able to spend so much more time doing my work, I think one of the other blessings of this kind of slowing down and stopping of the carousels of activity we're usually swept up in has allowed myself, and from what I can gather, many others, the space to actually see our minds more clearly, as we're doing in a very heightened sense now on this session. And while it is a blessing, and at times feels like it a blessing, it's by no means an easy one, and it may not always feel like one while we're going through it. I know, speaking for myself, I've been able to give a lot more attention, or we could also say time, to truly meeting a lot of my various demons, the ones with 3 heads and 8 arms. And in this meeting is actually when and where the 16-foot golden body Buddha emerges. So in reading Uji this time around, the passage that spoke to me, and I have to confess that in reading Dogen, I just pray that I can find the minimum of 4 consecutive sentences that I can really go somewhere with, because as with many of you, he continues to be confabulating, realizing that is part of what he's doing, but still I would say each time I might find a different 3 sentences that speak to me. And, it's amazing how with Dogen, 3 sentences can change your life. But this time around, the passage that spoke to me was number 16. And I'll just read through it quickly once. For the time being, mind arrives, but words do not. For the time being, words arrive, but mind does not. For the time being, both mind and words arrive. For the time being, neither mind nor words arrive. Both mind and words are the time being, both arriving and not arriving are the time being. When the moment of arriving has not appeared, the moment of not arriving is here. Mind is a donkey, wind is a horse. Having already arrived is words, and not having left is mind. Arriving is not coming, and not arriving is not yet. So just to go through it in, how I was seeing it was that when he's saying for the time being, mind arrives, but words do not, kind of describes that state when we come to see something, but the words aren't there yet. We can't express it yet. For the time being, words arrive, but mind does not. And for me, this captures that place where, we can describe an idea or a thought, but actually we're not really there yet, For the time being, both mind and words arrive. So sometimes actually it's very clear and we can both realize and express where we are right then. And on the other hand, for the time being, neither mind nor words arrive. And that may be that place where we're just experiencing, not knowing before knowing, we're just in it. And, they really just all different states of being and different states of mind. One isn't better or worse than the other, but they are different ways, different mental states. And each potent in its own way. Both mind and words are the time being. Both arriving and not arriving are the time being. So here, I guess it's like this is just all our life, and it's just different ways or perspectives on seeing it. When the moment of arriving has not appeared, the moment of not arriving is here. So we're not where we want to be yet or think we're going, but actually he's saying we're always somewhere. So by the time we say it and have the words, we may likely be somewhere else, but we are never nowhere. Mind is a donkey, wind is a horse. So again, there's always different ways of seeing and different things to see. Having already arrived is words, and not having left is mind. So, this place of, if we think we've already arrived or we've already got it, this is really just a concept. Um, it's never reality. And not having left is a state of mind. Arriving is not coming. It's its own, it is its own time. As is not arriving is not yet. So for me, this is really probably the most potent, because it's like each and every moment of time, each moment in our lives, is its own reality with its own value. And can be so difficult and challenging for us to fully believe and appreciate this, to let ourselves experience the value of our lives as they are fully in this moment, to not relegate much of them to being not important or meaningless, or as simply being a means to an end, which from a given point of view may be how some of us and many people might spend their whole lives, believing that they're always on the way and needing to be someplace else, someone else, something else other than right here. I remember, and I think years ago I spoke about this, but it just became clear to me again for some reason. I was reminded of it because of this text, and I was working on a coil pod, coming to my own first profound kind of experience of this teaching, which was while I was teaching how to make coil vessels or pots at Kingsborough Community College, one of the places I teach. And it's one of the most, it is probably the oldest and most fundamental building techniques there is, like over 20,000 years old. And it seems as if it should be so simple, as just a coil pot could be. But this may not be so. So the technique is for forming is using basically coils of clay, which are rolled from lumps of unformed clay. And then these coils are then laid upon one another to go up and either straight out or to move inwards in direction. And how they're laid upon each other determines which way the pot will move, and how thick or thin or even the coil is will determine the nature of the wall itself, its dimensionality. It's thick, thin, even, or uneven. And our human nature being what it is, and I certainly get this way now with a lot of things. Everybody just wants to roll the goddamn coil, get it done with, get it over with, to get to the real part, the next part, the important part, which is laying them on. And then what we think of as shaping the pot. But of course, how we've rolled the coils completely determines and affects how we can lay them on. So if they're not rolled evenly, it's not possible for them to lay evenly, which then, of course, complicates actually joining them, which once again, we definitely want to get through that piece as quickly as possible so that we can really get into the shaping. But if they're joined unevenly, then there too, it's impossible to control the shape. And so I think probably you see where this is going. The shaping of the pot began way back in the preparation of the clay for rolling the coils, its consistency. And then how they were rolled is just as important and makes possible the laying on of them and so forth and so on. And when all these various aspects are not given our full attention, basically we end up just managing chaos and trying to keep the piece from collapsing, as you know, one side is going this way and the other side is going another way. So each and every step is of equal and complete value. The means are not separate from the end. And it took me years with this to learn to actually relax into and enjoy the parts that for so long I just wanted to get through because they didn't seem juicy and they didn't seem important. Not unlike, again, what Shuso mentioned this morning, you know, it's like I didn't see them as interesting. But actually, the time spent in doing these seemingly very mundane, mindless, and boring tasks is actually most often where what I would call the magic gestates, where it lives, where it is. It is decidedly not what we so often consider wasted time. So these spans of repetitious or unspectacular activity are ones in which the mind doesn't need to figure anything out. And so there's a way in which it's both focused, but also at rest. And there is a tremendous refuge or peace to be found in that space. And we can almost even experience it as an open field where we can be free. And so every action or inaction does make a difference in ways seen and unseen. Because in looking at the finished pot, we have no idea of the multitudes of steps that go into making one simple thing manifest. So I think, again, you know, directly to what Kojin was talking about this morning, but when we really fully surrender to our lives, to each moment as they are, and while much of it may be extremely repetitive, in nature. When we fully surrender and are simply present and paying attention to whatever it is or wherever we are, it's actually never the same in the doing of it or in the result. And I think, that's become so obvious when we go on the retreat. And that's one of the reasons we have these schedules and we go on retreats. It's to help us to see what we otherwise don't see happening all the time in our own lives. Also, I would say for anyone who's had the privilege of living with a dog, they are probably some of the most profound and wonderful teachers for this lesson. Every walk is the best walk. Every time you open the door is the most exciting moment in the world, even if it's the 15th time in one day, it doesn't matter. It's the only time and it's the best time and it's the most exciting time because it's the time that's happening now. So the question is, do we notice this and use it? Even and especially with the mistakes that we make. And, this is where mastery lies in any endeavor. So I'm just getting concerned about the time here. I'm seeing that I'm just rambling on. But I guess I wanted to just say that I find in this time of COVID, this particular teaching particularly useful, especially as we're hunkering down again for, a much more socially distanced and hibernatory period. That just to remember, though the days may seem the same, they're really not the same. And the more deeply we can surrender to that, the more the blessings of them have the possibility of revealing themselves to us. So I would also just say that, in the psychic realm of the time afforded to us now, I would encourage all of us to spend much of it on the deep work of getting to know our own personal demons, born from our own very personal wounds in the past, but which are still quite active in the present. And this time we have now is precious. The more we fully engage being and exploring what's happening in the present of this moment, the more the past actually reveals itself in the present. Because as we really see the present, we can see the past. And as we heal ourselves now, we can heal the past. We can't change the past, but we can heal it in how we see it. Because so much of this text is showing us the potency and the power of being able to shift our perspective and the ways in which we see to not get stuck. And as I think many of us all realize, but forget just how true it is, you know, that it's as we heal ourselves, the better we may be able to help heal the world effectively, whatever that looks like for each of us. And for each of us, that's very different, you know. And as we heal the world, it's through our actions in the world that we also heal ourselves. I just was remembering this incredible sign that used to be at the ferry terminal when you came in on the boat. And it was like, it was up for years and years and years. It was like a graffiti-like swatch of big black stripe along the whole length of the pier and these big bold white letters. And all it said was "at the same moment." You know, it was just like crazy. It was like this Zen koan, like on, just painted. And you'd come in on the boat and, you know, you would be standing on the bow of the boat and the wind would be blowing and there'd be birds and helicopters in the sky and the boat would be arriving, and then you could see other people waiting to leave, and we would be about to depart or leave the boat, and depending how you looked at it, arrive or enter the terminal. And there would be boats going in all directions, coming and going, and helicopters landing and helicopters taking off, and traffic on the BQE and birds flying, people waiting to get off, people waiting to get on, people just looking out the window, people on their phones. Arriving, not arriving, leaving the boat, just this tremendous cacophony of like the vastness and simultaneity of reality. So along with the vastness of reality, it's always good to remember that the coil is the pot and the time is now, which is always, always right here. It's so close, right under our feet, as Shuso said the other evening, even as it always continues to flow. Thanks for listening, and have a really good rest of your journey on this retreat. Thank you.